We have made it to day 24.
Woo!
The last of the Advent calendar, boys and girls. And the last of the Christmas horror that we're going to talk about. So, Ligea, Santa's dirty, violent companions. What's going on here?
Yes, or Santa's dark helpers, and they're very literally dark. We're starting with the darkest, actually. So we will get to Krampus, but he's the last on the list, so bear with me. First, we'll have to go back to the Netherlands. And we've already talked about Zwarte Piet, Black Peter. So do you remember when we talked about it?
Yes, I don't quite remember which one he was with, but I remember he's sometimes represented in like blackface, but he's like a little helper man. He has a sack, doesn't he?
Oh yes, that too. It was day 17, not Santa.
Not Santa.
But Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas, okay.
So there you can see both of them arriving by boat. And maybe you remember that Sinterklaas comes from Spain in a boat, nowadays a steamboat. And then he leaves the boat and he starts riding his horse until Christmas because he arrives early. Like, he's not a last-minute saint like Saint Nicholas.
Right. The kids follow him on the horse and stuff like that.
Exactly. So he has plenty of time to distribute all the presents. And the Netherlands aren't that big. So he has enough time planned to do this. He's very meticulous. Okay, so one reason why all of these Santas and not Santas do have helpers, I already explained a little bit about this, is that they are seen as pure good and they're friends of the children. You remember the situation with Saint Nicholas on day 6, that he's a protector of children. So he would never harm children. He gives them gifts. He protects them from being dragged into child prostitution. So, of course, he can't be like the heathen gods who give gifts to good people and punish bad people. He can't do that as one person. That's why he needs a companion who punishes bad kids. And these companions are often portrayed as servants, and in some cases they're naturally black, which is the case with Black Peter. And in other cases, they're just black because they're dirty, like Befana, who comes through the chimney, so they're full of soot.
Right.
Yes, so in the Netherlands, you have this helper named Black Peter. There is even an Indonesian version of him. Let me write this down. And he's called Piet Hitam. Oh, sorry. Hitam. They do have a version of Piet because they used to be a Dutch colony. So Indonesia has Sinterklaas and they have Sinterklaas's helper. And compared to Indonesians, he's not actually that dark. So he has been part of the law since about 1850. And at first he was introduced as a black Moor. And that is actually not a double description. So not all Moors are black. I'm going to explain this because I don't think you know where the word comes from. It's a Greek word. Moor comes from the word amauros, and in Greek that means dark. But people who were described as amauros weren't naturally Africans, so they were not native Africans with a really dark skin color. They could also be Arabs, because the Arabs had darker skin than the Greeks. So the Moor of Venice that Shakespeare talks about was most likely not a native African, but was from North Africa, which means from the Arab population of North Africa. He usually wears very colorful, old-fashioned clothes, and he has black curly hair and red lipstick. So some people have seen this as a mockery of actual native Africans. That's why in the late 20th century, there were some groups that changed the name to Sooty Peter. So now he's not Zwarte Piet anymore, he's Sooty Piet. as a result of political correctness. But he was never meant to be a character that was ridiculous. He was never a bad character. He was always very beloved by children. There were just some people in the Netherlands who had a real problem with his skin color. But you know what he does is actually really good. He's the reliable servant of Sinterklaas, and he distributes sweets and nuts and fruits to children. And he also helps with handing over the bigger presents to the parents. As you know, we've talked about that Sinterklaas does that sometimes, but you also have Peter moving around and just knocking on doors and giving the parents the presents so they can put them under the tree. So
he just generally helps Sinterklaas, right?
Yes, it's a good character. There are some more representations of him. And the funny thing is that his blackness doesn't even mean that he's from Africa or the Middle East. So some people have looked into the story, and he is actually a heathen character.
All right.
The whole story of Sinterklaas is a reenactment of Germanic mythology. Sinterklaas is actually Odin, because Odin also has a white or grey horse. Let me show you. This is Odin on his horse. And the horse has 8 legs. The horse is called Sleipnir. Odin rides around on his pale horse. Well, not pale like a dun horse, but pale like white or grey. And he is followed by his trusty helpers, Hugin and Munin. And these two are ravens. They sit on chimneys and they listen to what people are talking about in their houses. So you have to imagine this from the point of view of a Viking. They have houses where usually the whole house just consists of one room, which means if you sit on the chimney and you listen to what people are talking about, you can hear what everyone in the house is talking about because it's really just one room. So these ravens tell Odin what the mortals are plotting. And they tell Odin who's good and who's not so good. And according to this mythology, Black Peter is actually a human merged version of Odin's ravens, and that is why he's black. He's not African.
I see.
So completely pointless to ban his black face.
Yeah, it's just representation of the fact ravens are black birds in a human form is yeah, I get it. Interesting.
Yes, so they could replace him with ravens, with tame ravens or crows even, in these celebrations, but people love him so much that they want to see Black Peter.
I mean, why not just give him like a bird head instead?
Yeah. But you know, they're used to him, and it's a popular figure. When you look at this picture, this is one of the protesters who don't like his blackface. Black Peter actually looks like the mascot of a chocolate company. So even the dress is similar. So this is a really popular old-fashioned chocolate brand, and they have this more. The company is called Zaroti. So he looks a lot like that.
Right.
And that's a super popular character. Kids love that.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it's not meant to be a horrific representation of black people. It's a more, right?
Right. So
because I do understand why people have offense to this, and I can get behind that, but you know, I suppose it's important to know your history as well at the same time, isn't it?
Yes. So it's weird that we want more black representation, even in European tales, where it's naturally rare from a historical point of view. But at the same time, they're eliminating black characters from these celebrations.
Yeah. It's a tricky road.
Yes, there you have some more Odin. You have the horse, and in some cases it doesn't have 8 legs, so just because the artist was lazy.
Or maybe he doesn't know their mythology all that well, huh?
Yes, it's
Like I can
possible,
tell.
or it's you have the same thing going on with Cerberus, the dog of the underworld in Greek mythology.
Hmm.
That dog actually has 50 heads,
I'm sorry,
and you
what?
usually only see it with 3 because
Yeah.
artists are lazy.
50 heads, like a
Yes.
Hydra kind of situation.
Yes.
I had no idea. I've only ever seen it represented as 3 heads, even in like just that's huh.
Yes, so the original has more heads than what you usually get to see, and it's really a problem. And you can legitimately say it's a problem with the artists, because, for example, when you look at old Disney movies, they wanted to do a movie about the Tiger of Eshnapur, but it never came into being because the people who had to draw all these pictures for the animation said no. We can do lions, but tigers? Are you insane? Have you seen the stripes? To animate all of this by hand is a nightmare. That is why there is no movie. And even Shere Khan from the Jungle Book, that was a challenge, and it took the longest to animate because you have to consider where the stripes are going.
Hmm.
If you do
Too
that
bad.
without a computer. Yeah. So much easier for Aladdin, where they also have a tiger. But tigers don't get much screen time in animation because back in the days they were difficult to animate.
Hmm.
So, yes, Pete started as sort of a boogeyman, and most of these dark helpers are actually the boogeyman. He was tasked with scaring the children into behaving, but right from the start, children just loved him. So the Dutch let him be, and he turned from a boogeyman into a gift giver, and is known as a very benevolent assistant since that time. Um, there is no long history of a servant in the Netherlands, so that is not typical for the Dutch version of Santa. And the idea is that the character of a servant was most likely influenced by the German traditions that we're going to look into. So, yes, it's a representation of Odin's ravens, but to merge these ravens into one person, into a servant character, that is most likely connected to the neighboring German traditions. Okay, one last thing about Pete. Do you know who this is?
Um, looks like some kind of Swiss National Guard, maybe.
Yes, not National Guard, but this is the Swiss Guard, the Papal Swiss Guard, not PayPal with a Y.
Yeah, but papal is in like a religious,
Right.
right?
Yes, they dress very similarly to Pete.
Huh.
So this was in fashion in early modern times, in Renaissance times. Um, so this is actually a badass special force because when the Pope was threatened, he called for help, and interestingly, Switzerland answered and said, "Yes, we got this. We will send our most badass special forces to Rome to protect you." And this is what they sent.
That's great.
So back in the days, they didn't have these cool black uniforms. This was a special forces uniform, and they came to Rome specifically to protect the Pope from his enemies.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And they're still a badass special force. They're still there after centuries. They never went home.
Wow. Oh, that's cool.
You could imagine that maybe it has something to do with the sunlight and the temperatures, because Switzerland can be really cold in the mountains, and it consists mostly of mountains. So they probably thought, oh, we'll just stay here. Nobody's going to notice. And if
Yeah,
our
they don't
Swiss
need us back
brothers
home. It's fine.
And if Swiss brothers ask us, we can still say, yeah, that the Pope is totally at danger. So we have to stay. We have to protect the Pope. This has been going on for a while, and you can join the Swiss Guard if you're Swiss and Catholic.
Oh. Good for some
Okay.
people to know.
So yes, just to explain why Pete's dress looks like this. It's not unusual. It's something that you could have seen at a specific period around aristocrats. So he's almost dressed like the Swiss Guards. So you could interpret him as a bodyguard for some aristocrat or something like that. That's what his costume says.
Mm.
Okay, moving on to France. You haven't seen France yet, and you will be surprised. His companion is not black, so it's not black skin, it's not a black raven. His companion is just dirty.
Right.
There is Saint Nicholas. So in France, he's called Saint Nicholas. And he has someone with him who is known as Père Fouettard. So Père Fouettard is the French version of the name Father Whipper.
Father Whipper.
Or Old Man Whipper. That's also a possibility. Father Whipper appears in the border regions between France and Germanic areas, like Dutch-speaking Belgium, Germany, and German-speaking Switzerland. So it's that border where the overlap with the Germanic traditions happens. And he's clearly influenced by these Germanic traditions. So this is not something Celtic. You know, the French also have this combination of Celts and Germanic people, like Britain has. The original population of Britain was Celtic, and then you had the Germanic invasion from the Anglo-Saxons and their Danish friends. Similar situation in France. That's why British and French orthography is pretty weird. Père Fouettard brings coal to unruly children, and he whips them.
So, coal and a whipping. A double punishment.
Yes. I mean, coal wasn't always a punishment. It was something that would keep you warm in winter. So at least you get that. It's dirty, and it's not really something a child would wish for. But the child can give that coal to the parents, and at least they can heat the oven.
That's true. That's true.
And the name is pretty old, so the name has existed and has been documented since 1252. And the background story is not the background story that you find in the Germanic areas, but it is stolen straight from Greece. So, do you remember the pickled students of Myra?
Oh, yeah, kinda.
Do you want to explain what happened?
Sebastian jumped on my PC. He's a silly boy, but sometimes he kicks things around. It's okay. Yes, so if I remember correctly, the pickled students, it's, I believe one of them gets, or potentially more than one of them, gets put into a barrel, don't they?
Yeah, they get cut apart and put in the barrel during a famine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, but I don't remember if it was an alcohol barrel or if it was just like a typical pickling barrel.
No, it was a butcher who did this, so probably one that he would usually have filled with pork.
Oh, right, so just expecting to potentially reuse the meat as meat.
Yeah. And what did St. Nicholas do?
Well, he put a stop to that, didn't he?
Yes. And not just
I don't remember
that.
I don't remember what he did to the butcher, though. Did he do something similar to the butcher? Did he cut him up?
No, that is absolutely 100% the right question for this topic. Okay, St. Nicholas revived the students, so he brought them back to life, although they had been disassembled. So
Oh,
um, we never learn what happened to the butcher, but the French have an answer to that because in their history, Father Whipper is that butcher of Myra who pickled the students.
what?
And yes. So a great person to have around your little children at Christmas.
That's so fucking weird.
Okay, the thing is, in their story about the event, they transfer it to France. So Saint Nicholas does his miracle in France. And the butcher is punished for his evil deed by Saint Nicholas. And he forces him into servitude. In a different version, people say the butcher wanted to repent and became a servant out of free will. But I think it's more likely that Saint Nicholas threatened to beat him up, as he would
Yep.
usually do.
Yeah, he likes getting in a lot of fights, that guy. Well, went to jail a few times, didn't he?
Exactly. So that is why St. Nicholas in France has this dirty servant who is not safe around children. But St. Nicholas controls him, so I don't think that Father Whipper is trying to pickle anyone.
Not
But
yet.
keep an eye on him.
Yeah. What the? That's so strange. Okay.
So, yeah, even from a German point of view, this is weird to have a cannibal servant. Moving on. Okay, even weirder. This is going to shock you. There is a United States version of Father Whipper.
Is there?
Yes, it came up in the 1930s. It was not connected to Christmas, though, so that's maybe why you haven't heard of it. It was something that appeared in children's books. He was known as Father Flog, and there was a Mother Flog too, and his nickname was Spanky. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You can probably still find this somewhere. So those were stories for children, and they were trying to animate children to behave in a moral way. So Father and Mother Flog would run around, and not only during Christmas time, but in general, and they would punish children for misbehaving. And again, we could use that picture of that escalated quickly. Because one of the punishments for lying was that they cut the child's tongue out.
Okay. I mean, I've
That,
heard similar, well, like people thieving and they get their hands cut off. So I suppose it's not out of the realm of what we've heard before.
but it's usually not 20th century United States.
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised.
Well, Terry Pratchett, the well-known Welsh philosopher, once said that people in the Middle East cut thieves' hands off so they don't steal anymore, and people in Old England cut people's heads off so they wouldn't think about stealing anymore.
It's extra proactive, you know.
You're preventing crime.
That's right.
Okay. So yes, there is a really weird version of him, and if you imagine the whole backstory of the butcher of Myra pickling kids, whipping them, and cutting out their tongues, Father Flog and Mother Flog, and that is really spooky.
Yeah, it really is.
That's worse than the French character alone. So what does he look like? You can see that even when he's standing next to St. Nicholas, he has these quite sinister looks about him. He is usually described as someone with a sinister face. He has dark, dirty robes and unkempt hair and beard. He has a whip, a large stick, sometimes bundles of twigs or sticks. And he also has that wicker basket that the goat demon from Bavaria has to carry away bad kids.
Oh my.
That is something that would usually shock children into submission back in the day. So if they were put in that basket and he carried them out of the house, that would sometimes be enough to stop them from misbehaving, because they thought, okay, he's going to whip me when we leave the house, and he's probably going to pickle me, so
Let's not fuck with that guy.
can't get over the pickling.
It's so fucking weird.
Okay, let's leave that behind. Let's get to the two German characters, and before we do that, I need to show you maps, because legitimately people could ask, why is everything happening in Germany? There are so many German Christmas characters and so many different ones. We have a map of Europe. One reason why a lot of this stuff just happens in Germany is that it's pretty much in the middle of Europe, as you can see. So wherever you want to go with your little army, whether you're the French who want to attack Russia under Napoleon, bad idea by the way, or whether you're the Swedish who are planning a trip to Italy, you have to go through Germany.
Yeah.
So this is an area where a lot of people spend some time simply when they're on the path of war. So you're trying to move through Europe, and that is simply the easiest way, often the shortest way too. You can ask modern truckers. To them, it's very important that the highways in Germany are in good shape. The second reason is that Germany used to be much larger than it is now. So that is something you can see in the second set of maps. And that is the Holy Roman Empire, but that's not the full name. The full name is Holy Roman Empire of German Nations, and it's also called the First German Empire, but it was a multicultural empire. So there were a lot of people in it who did not speak German and who were not ethnic Germans. As you can see, at one point there was half of Italy in it. Then you have parts of France, you have Slavic areas. It used to reach into Denmark too. And then if you remember the video about Janko Zensch, you also had a dynasty in the late First Empire, the Habsburgs, who were also kings of Spain, for example. So a lot of countries on the continent used to belong to the First German Empire, and it's called Holy because it started with a pact between a tribal leader, a German tribal leader, and the Pope. They decided to bring back the Roman Empire, but this time not with Rome as a center, because Rome was a city that belonged to the Pope at that point. So Rome was simply another word for civilization back then. They remembered the Roman Empire, so they wanted the civilization back that they had had during the Roman Empire. And it explicitly says Empire of German Nations because every single of the emperors of the First Empire belonged to a German dynasty. So sometimes they didn't live in Germany. We've talked about the emperors who lived in Spain, for example, because they liked the weather better. But this is legitimately the First Empire. And Britain has a different opinion on this. They usually say that Germany only started in 1871. So First Empire is from 800 to 806, by the way, was ended by Napoleon. And the last emperors were Austrians, but Austrians are a German tribe, so that is a German dynasty. Second one was 1871 until 1918, end of World War I. And the Brits say that Germany started in 1871 precisely because it became a nation state at that time. So before that, it was multicultural, and the Second Empire was like 99% German. So they only recognize it as an ethno-state and not as a multicultural state.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, you have this as a center of different cultural units that are a little bit bigger. So it's not an ethnic group, it's an ethnic supergroup like the Celts, the Slavs, the Germanic people, and the Mediterranean people. Italians, for example, belong to the Mediterranean people. Poles belong to the Slavic people. Those are supergroups that have more than one ethnic group and more than one nation in them. And it all comes together in Central Europe. So on the western side, you have the Celts. In the south, you have the Mediterranean people. And in the east, you have the Slavic people. And it all comes together in this area. So it's simply an area where a lot of cultural influences meet, and where you get input from many different cultures.
Makes sense.
Okay, so that is why everything is happening there, why there's so much stuff that comes from there, because it's extremely diverse in a cultural sense, and there are reasons for that. Just wanted to point that out. Because even from my point of view, it's a lot of German stuff here. So, let's look at Rupert. What did I tell you about Rupert?
Oh goodness, we talked about him just in the last one, didn't we? Hang on, I've got...
So, yes, we mentioned him when we talked about Bertha, that he might be her brother. And that is because the names are similar. They have one word in common. That word means bright. And his name Rupert, or Ruprecht in German, is one of the nicknames of Odin. Because the full name means glorious and bright.
Oh, right.
So there again you have Odin hijacking the Christmas lore.
Yeah, he and Zeus, they like to take some spotlight, don't they?
Yes, but it actually makes sense. So there's a reason why Rupert is Rupert the servant, specifically the servant of Saint Nicholas, and why he's dirty and unkempt, and why Saint Nicholas is the dominant one. The reason for for this is that it shows that the Christian saint can domesticate the heathen god. And there are slightly different names in different regions. So in middle and northern Germany, this is Rupert. And then you have Schmutzli in Switzerland. And Schmutzli means little dirt.
Oh.
There we have Schmutzli with the Swiss Santa. Yeah, so as you can see, it's kind of a dirty barbarian.
Yeah.
There is another version that lives in northern Bavaria. So in northern Bavaria, you would actually think it must be Krampus, while Krampus is the Bavarian version and the Austrian version. So he's in southern Germany, but in northern Bavaria, you have some Protestants, and they wanted their own one. They didn't want the heathen god. And their version is called Belznickel. So this means the furry goblin.
That's great.
And he basically looks like Rupert and like little dirt, so they all look the same. And he lives on heathen territory, so I would expect him to get into fights with Krampus because, you know, they're neighbors. And
Why not, right?
maybe Krampus doesn't like that Belznickel infringes on his Christmas celebration. It's because this area where Belznickel lives is part of the Middle German dialect area and not of the Southern German dialect area. So this is connected to dialects. Rupert is the most common version of the helper in Germany. So when you've seen all these new movies and TV shows coming out about Krampus, when the United States discovered him, or when Hollywood discovered him, they showed this as being something that is very, very common all across Germany, and it's simply not. So the most common version is Rupert. And you can see that in The Simpsons, because Santa's little helper is called Knecht Ruprecht in German.
Oh.
Yes. He's a dirty, unkempt servant. I mean, Rupert, not the dog. In a black or dark brown robe with a hood and a sooty face, and he often has the tongue hanging out. So usually he has a black cloth mask with like a felt tongue, a red felt tongue. So it's not someone who's running around with an open mouth with a tongue hanging out. He carries a sack and a bundle of hazel twigs to whip kids with, but he doesn't do that nowadays. So it's been a while since he actually did that. But of course, it's the constant threat. He's the boogeyman.
Right. Something about servants whipping people is really weird.
Yes, and Saint Nicholas doesn't do that, so he needs someone who does it for him. In older sources, Rupert sometimes eats bad kids, and that is a symbol of the devil devouring the souls of bad people. So it's not the same kind of cannibalism that we see with Gryla in Iceland, for example. It's a different kind of cannibalism. It's a more spiritual one, and he doesn't eat kids because he likes the taste of meat, but it's symbolic. So he's a stand-in for the devil in that case. And we're coming to the main event now, to Krampus. So what do you know about Krampus?
Besides, I feel like the obvious thing is he's like, I don't really know if you call him a demon, but I feel like a lot of people would think of him as a demon. But he's, I think he punishes people. It might be on Christmas Day. It might be like a couple of days around Christmas. I'm not entirely sure the time frame. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he's just like a punisher essentially, isn't he? Really?
Yes.
Does he also have like little demons that work with him? I think.
Oh yes, we've met his wife actually.
Have we?
Yes. So the Snow Queen, the representation of the light on the snow, Bertha, married the bad boy.
Damn it, Bertha. I get it. I get it. Opposites attract. Get it.
Yes. So, yes, she is his wife. She's a heathen goddess. He's a heathen god. And he does have helpers. So the ugly followers of Bertha are actually his buddies.
That makes sense.
And it's very cute. You will see we have that here in the script. But let me tell you where he's a heathen god or a helper of Santa. So it's not just southern Germany and Austria, it's also Liechtenstein. And Liechtenstein is between Switzerland and Austria. It's a tiny, tiny country, like really just a thumbnail on the map, and most maps don't even have it on it. Maybe you know that the Swiss banking system used to be very famous, and they never gave out the names of their customers, so you only had ciphers, and you didn't really have a name on the bank account, so you could park your money there and nobody would know. That isn't the case nowadays, or at least not to its full extent. So the safer location for illegal money is actually Liechtenstein.
Okay.
And it's also a German-speaking country. It's between Switzerland and Austria. Very, very tiny. And nobody's even going to find it. Like, if you have the American IRS coming after you, and you say, well, my money is in Liechtenstein, they will never find it.
I feel like we're giving advice that we probably shouldn't be giving out.
Oh, no. I mean, you will go to the Cayman Islands, right?
Yeah, I'll just disappear. It's fine.
Okay, so those are German-speaking countries, but also Hungary. Hungary is not even a European-speaking country. The language of Hungary comes from Central Asia. It's an Altaic language. Then we have Croatia, Slovenia, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Northern Italy. Most of those are Slavic language regions. Northern Italy is, of course, a Romance language region. So it's weird that they call this Romance languages in English, but it has nothing to do with actual romance. It has something to do with the Romance.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's languages based on Latin are called Romance languages. It's a bit misleading. But yeah, it makes sense because Hungary used to form an empire with Austria. So after the first German Empire had collapsed, Austria decided to start its own business with blackjack and hookers. We need that picture of Bender saying that.
I won't get it.
So when Germany turned into a nation state with mostly the same people in one country, one language, 99% same people of the same ethnic group, Austria didn't want to continue that because Austria had been the last part of the first empire that had had an emperor. So they were already used to being emperors, but you can only be an empire if you have some more people in it. And they thought, okay, maybe 99% the same people, that is not going to be an empire. We need some people who don't speak our language and who have a completely different culture. So Austria went together with Hungary and some Slavic areas. Because they wanted to remain a multicultural empire and they wanted to remain emperors. They didn't want to go back to being dukes of Austria. So that explains why a couple of the Slavic areas and Hungary are in it and also have these traditions. They have them because they used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in the 19th and early 20th century. There is also some overlap with German-speaking Switzerland. We've seen that with the Silvesterklausen. And yeah, that's a pretty big area. So Krampus is not just a heathen god or helper of Santa who is in one country. He has multiple countries, and even countries with completely different culture that have adopted him because they like the concept.
Absolutely.
His name means claw. So Klampen in the southern German dialects means claw, or something dead, dried up, and wilted. The earliest written sources are from the late 16th century, but it's definitely a pre-Christian deity, and its range throughout Europe shows that it must have been around since before the First Empire. Krampus Day is on the 5th of December. And there are separate processions for him that don't coincide with the processions for his wife. They usually take place before Yule, so before Christmas, when darkness rules. And his wife's processions take place after Yule, when the light returns. So they're both heathen gods of winter. And this does have a romantic component because it's his turn before Christmas, it's her turn after Christmas. So on Christmas Day, he hands over the world to his wife.
Aww. He's
That
not
is a
such a
great
bad
present.
guy after all. Aww.
Exactly. His typical attire is a goat costume with a wooden head and cowbells, and I'm going to show you the cowbells now. So here you have some cows and their bells, so you can see how big they really are. He also has whips, sometimes chains, and a wicker basket, like the demon goat that follows his wife's friends. And the American horror comedy Krampus from 2015 isn't accurate because his time is long before Christmas. So his main day is December the 5th, one day before St. Nicholas Day. But they have placed him, I think, 3 days before Christmas. So he does not appear shortly before Christmas. That is the wrong time for him. He's connected to the St. Nicholas celebration.
Good to know. to know that
The
they got it
more
wrong.
you can lecture people in the theater now.
So it's not like it was hard to do the research to be like, oh, what day would Krampus show up? Oh yeah, by the way, it's established fact. So wow,
There's a
just
literal Krampus Day.
it's fucking lazy. That's insane.
Exactly. So there you have some more depictions. There you have the followers. So as I said, the ugly followers are actually his buddies, and the ones with the giant church windows on their heads are his wives.
Hmm. So is he considered a demon or a god, or kind of both?
But he's a former god. The thing is that Campos and Rupert and the other Germanic variants are basically tamed devils or domesticated heathen gods who have to serve a Christian saint. So they used to be gods, but then Christianity came, so Saint Nicholas took control, and now they're not as bad as they used to be. But seeing them as something bad is really something that came with Christianity, because heathens never saw them as only good or bad.
They were just playing a role.
Well, yes, you see that with Bertha, that she is a gift giver, but she's also a punisher, so they had both roles.
Hmm.
With St. Nicholas, they split that up. You have a good one and you have an evil one.
Right. But then what would be the opposite of Krampus?
He doesn't really have an opposite. So the winter demons, they have several functions. For example, they represent the darkness of winter, but his wife also represents the blinding light on the snow, the reflection of light on the snow. So although she is a winter goddess, she's also a goddess of the light on the snow. It's a bit more complex than just having someone who's good or evil. They're usually both.
Right. But
And
it does more sound like Krampus. He's playing a role, but it's more just one sided though.
yes, it's his evil side, you could say, but people in heathen times didn't see it like that. So if you wanted to pit him against someone, you would have to pit him against the King of Summer, like the Holly King and the Oak King, like in English mythology. He's the
Right.
Holly King, and his enemy would be the Oak King of Summer.
Okay. Okay. Or I guess in some cases, like I said, they don't really have an opposite or an opposing force. It's just
Yeah,
they are an established creation. I get you. I get you.
right. They have their function. So as I said, specifically his wife has that function to protect life during winter, and that is not something negative. She can be very negative. So when you remember the thing with disemboweling bad children,
Yeah, it's quite bad.
yes. But she also has good sides, and that's what I like about these heathen gods. It's not just Germanic mythology; it's also Greek and Roman and Slavic and Celtic mythology. All of these old religions, because they used to be religions before they came mythologies, all of them see people as very complex beings, and their gods are also just big people. They're complex beings. It's not this cookie cutter thing that we used to have since early modern times.
Right.
I mean, we've talked
Complex.
about Batman and Superman, and I know Henry Cavill hates me, but Superman is really a little bit cookie cutter.
Well, yeah, but he is. He's exactly what you would expect out of the word super. It's just
Right,
generic and perfect, and it's completely one sided. Like there's not a remote flaw in that character, you know? So it is
exactly.
cookie cutter. You're exactly right.
And that is the reason why people nowadays relate more to Batman, the perv in his bat costume.
Complicated, incredibly
Yeah,
rich philanthropist who gets to beat up guys at nighttime. Yeah. Everybody relates to that.
but yeah, he's a tortured soul, and I think that is what people can relate to. Superman
Of
doesn't seem
course.
like someone who has any personal problems.
Yeah, even though you think he would be a little bit more like upset at the fact that his home planet was destroyed and he's never going to get to see his family or any of the people of Krypton. But I guess whatever, right? It's totally fucking fine.
Go call Henry Cavill now. That is the Superman movie I want to see. You know, Superman
saying,
freaking
right?
out of it.
Yeah, like having some emotional problems because he's like, well, I'm never gonna get to visit my home planet. I don't know what it was like. I never got to meet my parents. All this guy. Yeah, I feel like that'd be pretty tragic. And it's like, yeah, I suppose the Batman one is worse because, ultimately he lost both his parents and he saw it. Like that's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
So I can understand why that's still worse.
Losing your whole home planet, you can't even go back to it ever. Like it's like Alderaan. And why is he not traumatized? Good
That's
question.
What I'm saying. He just seems like he's fucking fine, and it's like, are you sure? Because every time you see him, he's like, yeah, I just live on Earth, and I just do Earth stuff now, and I fucking love my life, and I still keep my identity a secret. It's like, well, there's almost no point really for you to have a secret identity because it's not like you can die. I suppose your loved ones can be at risk, but if you're aware of everything that's going on, or I don't know, you give them like fucking emergency pagers and shit like that, what have you got to worry about? Like, what the fuck? I don't know. The whole Superman thing, it really gets baffling the more you think about it. Exactly, right?
He should go nuts.
Yeah, I think nuts is a interesting way to look at the Homelander situation, but it's for good reason. I mean, he's had a fucking all kinds of troubled childhood and shit. It makes sense that he's a bit fucked in the head.
So, yes, we're officially asking someone to make that movie.
Do it.
Yeah, but I have to show you one last Krampus.
Okay.
So, there is a version that is made of dried plums.
Plumpus?
Ah, yes. Plum Krampus. Here he is.
Wow.
So, Christmas markets in northern Bavaria have started to sell these. And it isn't even his area. We've heard that this is Belznickel's area. But it has spread in northern Bavaria and I think Thuringia, which is bordering northern Bavaria. And they make these little Krampus figures of dried plums and other dried fruits. So you can see in the in the one with the red collar, he has a head that is a walnut, and he has a body that is partially made up of dried figs. That's the brown stuff that forms the torso. So you can find that when you go to a Christmas market.
Wow.
That is the last Advent video. I have to talk to the people now. Don't worry, I'm not getting political or anything. So I'm sure we made many mistakes, or I made many mistakes because I did the research, so don't blame Nate for this. If you found anything and you want to correct it, talk to us. So maybe we can make another series of Advent videos. Maybe not 24, but there's another year coming, and we could record a correction, and we could bring you on the show so you can correct these views yourself.
100%. But it's okay to give me a little bit of blame as well. But I mean, she is a smart one. I'm just, I'm like 10%, compared to her. But either way, she's right. If there's any corrections, we'd be happy to have you on the show, discussing your ideas, your issues, correcting us. That'd be really fun. Even just any kind of discussions or debates, really, I think it'd be really good. So if you'd like to be on the show, and you have a very interesting topic you want to discuss with us, which the gay might already know, but we'll find out, reach out.
Yes.
Let us know. We'd love to have you.
Yes, if you want to add something too, so if we forgot anything and you think, well, I live in Tibet you need to learn about the Tibetan tradition. Tell us.
That's right. Teach us
Maybe
the
it's
ways.
something that I couldn't research. Maybe it's in a language that I don't speak, and maybe it's in a language that doesn't have good articles in different languages. So we've done this with the Korean stuff, for example. So Korean mermaids, I would find the topic really interesting. It's not a Christmas topic, but when we did the mermaid video, there was so little I could find that was in English that I would really love to have someone from Korea come on the show and tell us about Korean mermaids. Same thing
yeah.
here. If you say we've completely been misrepresented, you got it wrong, or you didn't even say anything about my culture, I'm very sorry. As an anthropologist, this makes me feel bad. So tell us. Bring your culture on the screen.
Too right. Well, how about that?
So
24 days.
yay! And now we're doing the spooky video that is going to ruin your childhood. The video that we're streaming on Discord. The very, very short one that I've picked.
On the 25th, right?
Oh no, we'll assemble the whole Advent calendar video and post it on the 25th. But on the 24th today, we still have that 7-minute video, that film that we're streaming.
So we want. Gotcha. Stream today, 24th. Okay. I will set that up then. Well, past Nathan has probably set that up. So I'm not going to worry about it.
Exactly. So I will be there. We will give you the time when you will have to come to Discord.
Yeah. Well, we'll give them like a week advance notice and stuff like that.
Yeah. And we might even watch the Yule Cat as an extra, but maybe cut that out because we could do the video that I've picked first, so that's the one they know about, and the Yule Cat video could be an encore.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have enough yet about Christmas.
I know, right? I'm gonna make you sick of it by the time we're done with you.
Yeah, the giant Yule Cat. And it's so fitting that the troll woman is also a crazy cat lady.
Yeah. What a fucking weird. I don't even. You know what? I'm not. I can't. It's good that I can't comprehend all of it, because obviously we're just raised different ways, and we understand and we comprehend things in certain aspects. It's good to have an open mind, but it's also good to not understand everything. But you still should at least be aware of it.
I think that the cannibal troll woman has a very positive message for humanity. Even ugly, disgusting people can get laid.
And have 13 kids and a giant demon cat. You never know. It could happen to you. But your kids might become peeping fucking toms, and then that's a bit of a problem.
And I'm sure there's someone in the audience who's shouting, "That's me! That's me! You want to see my cat?"
Yeah. I've got a demon cat. You say I'm gonna get a husband? Yeah. Yeah, you are. You're gonna live in a cave, though. It's gonna be real fucking weird. You're gonna eat children, so just be prepared for all that.
Oh dear. We can make a video about crazy cat ladies and how they are actually the result of a brain parasite.
Well,
I'm not joking.
if you've made it this far into the Advent video as we're wrapping up, if you want to see a video of us talking about crazy cat ladies and brain parasites, let us know. We'll fucking do it, because that is really something strange and interesting that now I kind of want to do.
Absolutely, but remember that we also have to film the hangover video.
Yeah, we do. Well,
not now, but we'll tell you how to get rid of the hangover on January the 1st. So we're doing this in advance so you can prepare and you can buy some ingredients. and
Thank you.
hopefully you will be okay.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Well, at least we kept you up at night with our weird fucking stories. Well, we really hope you've enjoyed our Too Weird to Be True Advent Calendar. We've had an awful lot of fun making this, and we will see some of you for the little live stream later on today, which is going to be great. Awesome stuff. And obviously the Hangover video coming out probably in the next couple of days, so you can prepare for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, because some of you are going to need it. I might need it, but you know, that's my problem, right? Well, from both of us here, we've had a wonderful time, and we sure hope you have too. And
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Don't get eaten. Don't get whipped. Don't have terrible clothing. There's so many things you shouldn't do. Put your pasta strainer outside. Probably going to be all right.
Now you have to say Merry Christmas in Japanese. I'm waiting.
Merry Christmasu!
Yay!
Good night, everybody. Thank you to the YouTube and Patreon members who've been supporting this channel so far. This has been a fantastic effort. Thank you so much. I couldn't do any of this without your support. Really. I really can't. Thank you. Patreon now has exclusive ad-free videos. I know, quite a cool benefit, I gotta say. Can't do it on YouTube, sadly, just on Patreon only. It's a whole thing. There are many ways to support the channel, but becoming a member is probably one of the best ones. Support us today.